Hello and welcome back to the Royal League, the two-player tournament where we in the last video saw a game against Ben where I sadly lost at the end, and today we are going to take a look at a game against the world champion Marta Pescher, and of course ideally I would like to win to maybe keep my chances to have a shot at winning the Royal League season. And now, first of all, we can start with taking a look at the leaders and wonders. And we can see that there is not the most cultures notchy in the game. There is Darwin and Gaudi in H2. There is no theater leader in H3. There's no Hollywood. There is the internet, but there's also no Gandhi. So maybe it won't be a complete culture fest, as sometimes those two-player games are. There are some lab leaders with Bill Gates, Sid Meier, and Steve Jobs. Also Einstein and Marie Curie. So a lot of labs and science notchy. There's Churchill for the military. There's Manhattan Project for the military. A space flight could maybe be quite strong with all of those science leaders. And then we have also some strong H2 wonders with Ocean Liner Service, Railroad, and Suez Canal. There's no James Cook, there's no Maria, no James Watt. There are the two science leaders with Nobel Newton. There are two military action leaders with Napoleon and Catherine. There are also two military action leaders in H1 with Joan of Arc and Jan Žižka. Genghis Khan and Barbarossa can help with the strength. Michelangelo can maybe be interesting if you get early iron. There are some interesting wonders in the game for him. And then there's also Leonardo da Vinci for some lab and printing press synergy. Marta Pescher is in the first position and he just starts with taking the frugality, which I think is probably a good decision because you don't want to commit to any of those leaders and wonders that he can take for one civil action, as those are probably not that greatest in two-player games, and there's the chance for him to get pyramids, Acropolis, Hammurabi at the next turn, so it's probably best to just leave himself open, and then he takes the frugality, which is probably for card row reasoning, as now when I for example just take pyramids or engineering genius, the Acropolis will fall down to one civil action for him. If we take something from here, then the Acropolis would stay on 2. And I have to see what I want to do now, and I really don't want to give Marta Pescher the pyramids plus the engineering genius, so I kinda want to take one of those cards away because I think that could enable him a very strong start if he gets both of those cards. However, if I, for example, just take the pyramids for myself, then Marta Pescher, with having taken the frugality, gets engineering genius and Acropolis for one civil action, which I think is also not really that great. Maybe for the Acropolis it's not that beneficial because the benefits of finishing it as quickly as possible are maybe not as big as for the pyramids, but it would still be quite a strong start. Maybe it's also not the ideal Acropolis game, but I think in two-player games the Acropolis always has to be respected, and so I didn't want to just commit to the pyramids, rather went for the engineering genius myself. That could lead to a bit of a problematic situation. For example, if Marta Pescher now goes for Hammurabi, elects him, builds a mine, takes the Acropolis, then there will be the Stonehenge available for me, which is fine, but Alex will be discarded before my next turn, so I don't really know which leader I will be getting, if there's a chance and I don't know if a leader will be available for one civil action for me. However, with taking Hammurabi and the Acropolis from the row, then Marta Pescher, or then it would be that if a leader is in the next 2 cards that are revealed, and there are still 3 leaders left, so that's not completely unlikely, then that leader would actually fall down to one civil action for me, and then maybe I have a chance to get a leader for one plus the Stonehenge, and that together with the engineering genius I think would be a fine start. And so at the end I was willing to take the engineering genius, as I didn't want to give Marta Pescher the chance to take the engineering genius plus either pyramids or Acropolis. And then I was happy to see that Boudica is revealed, meaning that if Marta Pescher wants to go for Hammurabi and Acropolis, I would be able to get Boudica. However, Marta Pescher goes for a bit of a line that surprised me a little bit. He will actually go for Alex, so he doesn't go for Hammurabi and instead goes for Alex, takes the Acropolis, builds the mine, and then ends his turn. When I looked at his turn, I thought that he maybe even will go for Hammurabi, build a mine, and then take the pyramids. With that, he would let Boudica stay on 2 civil actions. Hammurabi would be taken away, so that could be a bit awkward for me. But maybe he wants to have the Acropolis, and if he then goes for Hammurabi and Acropolis, I will get Boudica for 1. Maybe he didn't like it that much, but he at least would have Hammurabi for himself. Now he has Alex, who I don't like that much, and I will be able to get Hammurabi plus Stonehenge with having the Engineering Genius, so I actually thought that is quite fine for me, and I was a little bit surprised to see this, but maybe he had some specific reasons in mind. Maybe didn't want to have let me have Boudica, maybe he was more afraid of the additional science from her than from Hammurabi, but I mean I will get some science now from the Stonehenge, so I was actually quite happy about being able to go for Hammurabi here. Also, I was happy to see that both of the copies of Irrigations are on their own. Now I can let both of them stay on 2 civil actions. If Matapeshur isn't willing to pay 2 civil actions for one of them, I the next turn could deny one of them, and Matapeshur at the end will take 1 for 2, will also build a second lab to get the additional science production going. Used Alex immediately, so that maybe at the next turn he has the chance to start seeding some events if he wants to, and having that politics action out of the way. At my turn, I could maybe think about seeding the call to arms into the deck, because Matapeshur doesn't have a free population, meaning that it could be that there is a free religion that he will miss out on, which is a bit painful with having the Acropolis. But on the other hand, I have Stonehenge, I have Hammurabi, I will be able to get iron this turn, meaning I have a nice way to set myself up peacefully, and with that maybe I don't necessarily want to push the deck, and also not with any strength events, and with that I at the end made a decision to not push an event. And then I think this turn is relatively straightforward. I will just start with building the second lab this turn, and then I will take the iron, the rich land, and the irrigation, just making sure that I have the irrigation in hand. There's an ocean liner service in the game where it can be nice to have an irrigation to get out of famine, of course, generally to also maybe increase my food production a little bit earlier, and at the next turn I can build 1 step of the Stonehenge. That gives me enough science to develop the iron, and then I can, with the rich land, I still have enough resource to go for an upgrade. I can get some production going very quickly, and maybe I also have the chance to take the masonry at the next turn, which works relatively nicely with the Stonehenge, even though not perfectly, because I have the engineering genius, but with ocean liner service, railroad, Suez Canal, and the game, I think having the masonry could be quite nice, and so I was relatively happy about how this start has been going for me so far. Then I draw the historic territory. Matapeshur will start seeding, even though he doesn't have a free population, but he doesn't get punished for it. The development of trade routes are revealed, and now he will go for irrigation, goes for 2 upgrades that gets him out of corruption, and he will also increase his population, so he goes for some very early food production, will maybe have a lot of population, and I mean with the Acropolis that can definitely work out quite nicely, and now let's see what he will be able to do with all of the additional food. Now it's my turn. I again don't seed. Thanks to the development of trade routes, I don't even have to build a step of the Stonehenge in order to go for the iron immediately. So I go for the iron, and thanks to the 1 additional resource from the development of trade routes, I can, thanks to the rich land, even go for 2 upgrades immediately, which I think is quite strong. Then I really wanted to have the masonry, because I think that's just quite a nice technology to have in 2-player games especially. And then I have 1 civil action left, and the question is, do I want to increase my population, or do I maybe even for another turn want to accumulate another 2 food with not going into consumption, and then maybe taking a card from the row. For example, I could take the drama, but there's not the biggest synergy for it. No Bach, no Marlene Dietrich. There is Anthony Gaudi, and it can be a nice technology generally in 2-player games to cheaply generate some culture, but I have early resource production, and the opera will also be perfectly fine for me. But there's also the alchemy that I could take from the row. With having the masonry, the upgrades to the alchemy are quite cheap, and also there is Leonardo in the game for some additional science production, and it was a very close decision. Maybe I can also just increase my population. Then Matapeshur would have the chance to go for the alchemy, could maybe just go for an upgrade if he wants to. But I mean, the alchemy is also not that strong in 2-player games. Maybe he rather wants to even have a printing press with having all the additional food that he's producing now, and with having the Acropolis. So I don't think I necessarily have to deny it. But at the end I thought maybe it is fine to take it for myself, accumulate 1 more food. Of course, again, with being at the risk of missing out on the free religion or the free warrior. But I don't really intend to seed at my next turn, and so there hopefully will be at most 1 card revealed, and with that I at the end was willing to take the alchemy and get even a bit more food from not being in consumption. I draw the heavy cavalry tactic, which could be interesting because Genghis Khan is in the game, and as you can see, sadly I do get punished. The development of religion, not the ideal timing, and the turn before Mata Bashir would have missed out on it. Now sadly I will miss out on it, which is a bit bad, missing out on the cultural reduction, but that's the risk that I have taken with taking the alchemy at the turn before. But there is Leonardo coming down the row, so maybe I will also get a bit rewarded for having the alchemy in hand. Mata Bashir will take the free religion, increases population, builds one step of the Acropolis, and then takes the breakthrough in the engineering genius, who gets two very valuable yellow cards for one civil action each. Now it is my turn, and I will at this turn just do some relatively efficient stuff. I somehow try to play the turn and fit taking the breakthrough into it, but that just didn't work that nicely because I have to make space in my hand, and then it gets a little bit problematic how to get out of corruption. I maybe can't get the iron upgrade going, which I kind of would like to do, and so at the end I just made the decision that I am willing to let the breakthrough be available for Mata Bashir, which is not ideal, giving him the chance to take another breakthrough for only one civil action. But I maybe have the chance to go for Leonardo at the turn after. I have the additional signs from the Stonehenge, and so I thought maybe it's fine if I just play the turn very efficient for myself and don't do something slightly inefficient in order to have the free hand space to take the breakthrough. Instead, I will just increase my population 2 times. And then I will go for an iron upgrade and just build 2 stages of the Stonehenge with using the engineering genius. At the next turn I might have the chance to just take Leonardo, elect him, develop the masonry, finish the Stonehenge, develop the alchemy, go for an upgrade, scoring 2 resources with Leonardo, and also getting 1 science production, going up to 4 science production. Which I think would be quite strong, and with that I at the end was willing to pass on the breakthrough. I expected that the Code of Laws probably will be taken away by Mata Bashir. He has just enough science to develop it immediately as the breakthrough, can then finish the Acropolis, maybe take the other breakthrough or do something similar, but maybe I have also a strong turn at my next turn with being able to go for Leonardo. I keep the historic territory and also the heavy cavalry tactic. I will draw the foray. Mata Bashir seats, and the development of politics is revealed, 3 additional cards for every one of us, and I have the scientific breakthrough and the immigration as new events, and especially the scientific breakthrough could maybe be interesting now that I will be going for Leonardo da Vinci maybe. Mata Bashir, as expected, will indeed go for the Code of Laws, finishes the Acropolis, and then takes the breakthrough. I think the turn makes a lot of sense, getting another very valuable yellow card for only 1 civil action, having the Code of Laws and having the Acropolis finished. He has a lot of food saved up, meaning that Barbarossa could be an interesting leader option for him. As you can see, this time I was willing to see it. I was, with going now for Leonardo, going up to 4 science production, and Mata Bashir at the moment still being in 2 science production, I thought a scientific breakthrough is just a valuable event for me, and I think it also has a benefit to just not give Mata Bashir the full knowledge about the next event deck, so maybe he has to be afraid of some different events and can just have the perfect knowledge, and so at the end I was willing to seed the scientific breakthrough into the deck. The event revealed is the development of crafts, and that was a bit of a risk of seeding, because if there's an event revealed it gives me some additional stuff. Then in order to play the turn how I want to play it, I need to build a warrior to get out of corruption, which is maybe not ideal, but I was still willing to seed, and now I also was still willing to go for the turn that I planned for, even though it means now having to build a warrior. I will go for Leonardo. I thought about going for Genghis Khan. I have the heavy cavalry tactic, so I could go for 2 warriors, reveal the tactic, but I think Leonardo is just giving me a lot of value now. 2 resources this turn, 1 science already this turn, and then more to come in the following turns, and with that, even though I might get punished by potential strength events, I maybe have some problems with the strength, but I was hoping that I will still be able to defend myself and that I can just take the additional value from Leonardo, especially now, of course, that the scientific breakthrough is in. I really would like to have the additional science production from him. So I go for him, I develop the masonry, finish the Stonehenge, develop the alchemy, go for an upgrade, and then I will build a warrior in order to get out of corruption, which is maybe not ideal, but it's maybe also not too bad to have this warrior. So at the end I was still willing to go for this turn. I have now 6 resource production, 4 science production, and was generally somewhat happy about my position. One downside is that I'm still in 4 civil and 2 military actions, and if the monarchy is taken away by Mata Bashir, then I might be a bit dependent on the H2 government farms, which always can be a bit tricky in 2-player games, but I was hoping that I will won't get any big problems because of it. I keep the historic territory and the immigration, Matapeshir seats, and luckily the scientific breakthrough is revealed immediately, so I don't get punished by any strength event. Instead I get an event that gives me 2 additional science compared to Matapeshir. However, the 2 science are maybe also somewhat useful for Mata, as now he has enough science to go for the knights, develop them, and he can go for Barbarossa. He will do 2 Barbarossa activations, going for a knight and a warrior, maybe having the phalanx tactic or maybe the medieval army tactic. Then he will increase his population and with that end his turn. Now it is my turn. I make the decision to not push, as I might get potentially punished by some strength events, and both of those events are at the moment not really that clear how nice those will be for me. The historic territory might very likely even backfire for me, so I just skip my politics phase, and then this turn was relatively clear for me. I will just take the Meiji castle, and thanks to the masonry I can finish it with 1 civil action, getting me out of corruption, going up to 4 strength, meaning that I'm not too much behind in strength. Even though I don't have the defense cards, I can now defend, which otherwise wouldn't be that easily possible, and so I think the Meiji castle just helps me a lot here, allows me to invest my resources nicely and makes me a bit safer, because with having that much food in Barbarossa, there's definitely the potential that Matapeshir can go for a relatively threatening amount of strength, but with having the Meiji castle now, hopefully I will be able to defend, and also as another safety measure, I at the end of my turn will copy the Legion tactic, allowing me at the next turn to build another warrior in case it will be needed, and then I hopefully again will be relatively safe. Probably will still be the weakest, but hopefully not in danger of any aggressions or in the future turns maybe some wars. And also I have enough science to go for an early H2 government form in case one should be available. Now H2 starts. Matapeshir has some different options for his turn, could go for iron, alchemy, or the monarchy, and he will go for the monarchy, building a lab before that, increasing his science production like this, going for cheap monarchy, is now at 6 civil and 3 military actions, and then interestingly he takes the urban growth and increases his population, so he's not interested in taking the iron or the alchemy, will now be without additional resource production for now, can maybe hope to go for coal at some point, or maybe has already some colonies seeded, where he then maybe hopes to potentially go for the Suez Canal later on. So an interesting decision to take this urban growth, but as we can see there is the scientific method already coming down the road, so he will definitely have a better option than the alchemy, and I very likely won't deny it with having already alchemies for myself, and then he can upgrade to scientific method, and then maybe he just hopes to find a solution for his resource production, maybe either with coal or with the Suez Canal. Now it is my turn, and I will go for the Rifleman, as you can see, for 3 civil actions, which is a bit expensive, but both of the Swordsmen, as you can see, will be discarded, so it definitely has some benefits to have the copy of Rifleman for myself, and also I kind of thought that maybe Matapeshir has pushed some strength events, and with taking the Rifleman I can develop them now, build one, upgrade one, getting myself out of corruption, being at 11 strength now out of the sudden. It's not really that easy for Matapeshir to get stronger than me again, meaning that if he has seeded some strength events, I maybe put himself a little bit into trouble here. At the next turn I can even go for another upgrade if it is needed, get even more strength, and if there are some strength events seeded by him, it might be a bit problematic for him. Now it is a bit costly to go for this Rifleman, but the important thing is that I still leave myself with enough science to go for an H2 government form, so I don't remove this option from me, and I at the end just thought it's maybe the most interesting turn. I could have done something as instead, and for example, just increasing pop, going for 1 alchemy upgrade, but then the question is what else to do. Do I take a cannon for 2? And at the end I just thought going for those Riflemen is a nice idea. Both of the cannons, this copy of cannon won't be discarded before my next turn, meaning I still have a chance to get a cannon at the next turn if I want to, and so that was my turn at the end. Now Matapeshir seats, and there's the wealthy territory revealed, and I was actually willing to bid quite a relatively high amount for this, as you can see, and that was mainly to deny the territory from Martapesher. I think for myself it's a bit too costly to really be worth it, because I will be sending 2 units away, and those units are actually costing more than the territory gives me, and not speaking of the population that I lose at all. But the good news is I have 6 food saved up. If I get 2 yellow tokens back into the bank, I can increase my population 2 times. So I have 2 free pop, can just rebuild if I want to. And so at the end I was willing to bid for this, because I didn't want to give this colony for very cheap for Martapesher. He has Barbarossa to very cheaply rebuild. There is the Suez Canal. When he gets the first colony, it will be a lot easier for him to fix his resources, and the 6 additional resources I think will actually be very helpful for him, maybe allowing him to go for some very quick upgrades to scientific method, not at this turn because he's missing the science, but at the following turn, while still maybe then relatively easily being able to go for Suez Canal. So I could get punished if there are more colonies coming, but at the end I was willing to take it away, and with having a backup colony already in hand myself, if there's the Suez Canal revealed, I might just be able to go for it myself, removing Martapesher an option to go for some additional resource production. So at the end I was willing to bid the Rifleman and the Warrior, but I also thought it is quite expensive, so I was not sure if that at the end is really worth it. It's definitely not worth it only for myself, but as a denial, maybe at the end it can be worth it, because I think the additional resources and with the ability of cheaply rebuilding with Barbarossa, it could have been quite a strong colony for Martapesher. He will then go for the cultural heritage, uses Barbarossa one more time, going for another knight, going up to 10 strength, will take the scientific method, the efficient upgrade, the cannons, and then just ends his turn. Will sadly let the strategy stay on 2 civil actions, which is a bit annoying for me. Now it is my turn, I won't push, and at my turn I will increase my population. As you can see, there's no government form on the row yet. I will increase my population. I definitely will build 1 rifleman, so that I am not in any danger of an aggression, and also don't have to sacrifice in order to be able to defend against an aggression. And then it's a bit tricky, because I kind of really would like to take the cannons, of course, but I also really would like to take the strategy, but I also kind of would like to get stronger than Martapesher, because while Martapesher the last turn pushed while being weaker, he also didn't really have a chance to get stronger, really. So even when there are some strength events in there, it would have still made some sense to maybe push. Especially as we saw now the outcome, I got now weaker, and maybe now Martapesher has the chance again to win some strength events. So yeah. If I just take the cannons in the strategy, I can't really get stronger, but if I want to get stronger, the question is which of those cards am I willing to miss out on? And at the end I made a decision that I am willing to miss out on the cannons, which is of course quite costly. It could definitely backfire, but I have the Magic Castle, I will still be able to get a copy of Cavalryman at some point. I will have the strategy for some additional strength, and with that I was hoping and that maybe I will be somewhat safe, and also I already missed out on some H2 draws. I maybe won't have that many draws left, so maybe I won't draw a tactic for the cannons anyway, and then the strategy is just maybe doing a bit more, especially because now I can safely go for the Republic without having too much trouble with having the strategy in hand. If I don't take the strategy and leave it to Martapesher, then he could maybe go for some threatening stuff with Napoleon strategy, so I have to be a bit careful. And so I think the strategy is basically a must pick, and at the end I made a decision that I want to get stronger again now instead of taking the cannons, but it's a close decision, because I definitely could get punished for not having the cannons, but for now I don't really get a lot of card draws, so I made a decision that at the end I am willing to not take the cannons. There are 2 ways how I could get stronger. I could either increase my population, building a rifleman. That would put me at 13 strength, and it would also, but it would mean that I don't draw any cards. But I could also just develop the strategy, just putting me at 11 strength, drawing 3 cards, which would be nice, but then I'm missing the science to go for a government form at the next turn, which I kind of would like to do, and with that I went for the Rifleman, but I was not too happy that I again don't get any H2 draws going. But at least I'm now at 13 strength. Martapesher can go for Napoleon if he wants to get stronger, but at least he is then committed to a leader that only gives him a bit of strength, and doesn't go for any culture leader or something, and also not for Newton with the scientific method, so it would be a bit of a price that he has to pay for that. And also I potentially can just develop the strategy at the next turn to even get stronger again, and with that I was willing to get stronger now, hoping that maybe Matapesha has to pay a bit of a price in order to overtake me if he wants to be prepared for potential strength events. So I don't draw any cards, sadly. Matapesha doesn't push this time, goes for the scientific method, goes for 2 cheap upgrades with the yellow cards that he has taken before. He's now at 7 science production, and as you can see, he indeed will go for Napoleon, making him stronger, indicating that there are maybe some strength events coming. Maybe he's also just a bit afraid. I have the Meiji Castle, I have the strategy, but I think it's maybe because of strength events that he is going for Napoleon here. Also, he takes the wave of nationalism. The additional resource could be very helpful for him with being in low resource production, and he also takes the team sports. Also, the Republic was in a row at his turn. He was not willing to deny it, and I at his turn will be willing to go for it, which means that I don't go for the strategy, meaning that I will stay weaker, but while there are now some indicators that there are some strength events coming, it's not for certain, and not developing the Republic costs me basically 3 civil actions with delaying it by 1 turn, and with that I was not willing to delay it, as I don't know for certain if there will be a strength event reveal that justifies missing out on the 3 civil actions, so I will just develop the Republic, and then I will go for an upgrade to my labs, take the efficient upgrade, a cavalryman and the opera. I think a cavalryman is a must pick after I have missed out on the cannons. Efficient upgrade can just be very useful if I maybe go for some farm upgrades, or later on maybe it's just for some upgrades to computers or some stuff like this. And then the opera, while there's not a lot of synergy for it in the game, maybe there's still a chance that I will go for Antoni Gaudi, and just in general having the option to just increase your culture reduction, I think can be quite useful to have in 2-player games, and so I at the end thought all of those cards are maybe very useful, and with that I went for the Republic, sadly meaning that I will stay weaker for 1 turn until I maybe then have the chance to go for the strategy again. Also, I was eyeing the railroad that is coming down the row. With the masonry I can finish that relatively efficiently. If there's no ocean liner service in the row, then maybe I can just go for the railroad, also again getting some additional strength and getting stronger. I draw 2 cards, a colonization card which could be useful, and a blunder, which at the moment is not really that useful. Matapesha seed. Sadly, the Reign of Terror is revealed now, so that sadly means I will have to lose a population. I don't have a free population, so that's definitely a bit of a setback, and I do get punished for not getting stronger at my last turn. Now Matapesha will go for the navigation, maybe indicating that there are some colonies coming. Maybe he's still hoping to go for the Suez Canal that is now coming down the road. He will play the cultural heritage, takes the engineering genius, definitely indicating that he is planning to go for a wonder. Maybe he has also the ocean liner service in mind, but with it going for the navigation, it's definitely not unlikely that he might want to go for the Suez Canal. And with no ocean liner service being in the row for me this turn, I made a decision to go for the railroad. I definitely at least thought about if I maybe want to just deny the Suez Canal, either than just finishing it this turn, going for it with Historic Territory 1, which is maybe not really that great, but I would get 2 additional resource production, the same as from the Transcontinental Railroad, but I would have to pay an additional civil action, and maybe the 5 strength is a bit more useful than the 1 happy face and a 6 culture. I could also take the Suez Canal and maybe wait 1 turn with finishing it, giving me at least a chance to draw a better colony, and that of course I would mainly do to deny the option from Matapesha, but Matapesha doesn't have any colony in play right now, and while he can go for it relatively cheaply, I thought maybe it's not necessarily the best to deny it here, but I definitely thought about it, but at the end rather went for the railroad and the 5 additional strength. So I will just finish it, and then I have an additional civil action, meaning I can take the reserves and develop the strategy, being at 21 strength now, and the reserves can be quite useful to have with me having now to lose 1 farm because of the Reign of Terror. I don't really want to lose anything else, and then I can maybe at the next turn go for irrigation, or maybe selective breeding if it is revealed. And also I was still thinking that maybe going for the ocean liner, even though it will be quite late, can still be an interesting idea, because Matapesha, I think he has already some food production. Maybe he will go for denial, but if he now goes for the Suez Canal, which might happen, then I maybe have the chance to go for the ocean liner service, and with that fixing my population issues. I am now at 21 strength, so the strongest again, hoping that there is maybe another strength event coming. but Matabecher pushes, and sadly now there's the Good Harvest revealed, as the Reign of Terror was maybe a little bit at revealed at a bit of an unfortunate time, and now the Good Harvest is revealed. Sadly, after having lost the farm, I get only 1 food out of it. At least that 1 food is enough to increase my population at the next turn, which can maybe potentially be useful for me. Mata gets 4 additional food, has now 12 food lying around, and he will go for the Suez Canal with no colony revealed, no colony in play yet, but that's definitely an indicator that there are a bunch of colonies coming, and despite having no colonies yet, he will still just finish it immediately, using the Engineering Genius 1 before he will lose it to the end of the age. And now of course I was interested to see what colony he will get in play, and the colony that he will get in play is the Inhabited Territory 2. And then with the last military, or with his as last action, he will use a military action in order to build a warrior, meaning that he spent all of his resources, meaning that he has only no food corruption, which is maybe not too bad for him. And now I was interested to see how many colonies there will be coming and what colonies there will be coming, because I think there have to be some colonies coming, otherwise Matabecher wouldn't have gone for the navigation and maybe also wouldn't have gone for the Suez Canal. Now it's my turn, I am the strongest, so I was willing to seed, and I started with maybe a relatively safe event and seeded a crime wave into the deck. And as you can see, the first colony is revealed now, the strategic territory. I was not really willing to bid 2 units here, that would be way too costly if I should win it, and so I just was willing to bid 1 rifleman and a card. Maybe I could have gone a little bit higher to maybe make Matabecher pay more, but it could also heavily backfire, and with that I didn't bid more. Matabecher at least has to send a knight away, and a H1 colonization card doesn't get it for a warrior only. Then this turn I have to think about how do I want to handle my population. Do I want to maybe go for selective breeding for 3, just developing it? Or do I want to develop the irrigation? If I don't take the selective breeding, I kinda have to do it, otherwise Matabecher maybe could deny the selective breeding. On the other hand, there's also the ocean liner service, maybe you can't deny both, so maybe it is fine to not develop the irrigation. However, I thought it is quite likely that maybe I have the chance to get the ocean liner service the next turn, because it's relatively late. Matabecher can't really easily finish it, so I think at this point he wouldn't go for a denial of the ocean liner service, and I can maybe just plan to get it at the next turn, hopefully in the 2 civil action area, which should be quite likely. Then I can just take and finish it, and then it could be quite nice to have the irrigation as a way to get out of famine issues. I can develop it now, scoring 1 more resource with Leonardo. I can go then for an upgrade, getting me out of corruption. I will go for Catherine, electing her, taking a breakthrough, and the organized religion. I could have also increased my population, but I can also still do this at the next turn, and yeah, I just thought that I really want to have both of those breakthroughs. The organized religion is also maybe important to have. I have the opera to get some happy faces, but not really anything else. And there's only Steve Jobs as a way to maybe get some additional happy faces from the leaders. And with that, I think the organized religion can just be very important to have. The breakthroughs are very strong to get both for 1 civil action, and I also kind of wanted to have a leader going already. I thought about if I can maybe just go for another one at the next turn, maybe also for Darwin, even though of course he doesn't work that nicely with the organized religion. But having a leader already this turn means that at the next turn I can take and finish the ocean liner service, and that will require all of my civil actions, but I have already my leader running. Also Catherine makes it that Matabecher maybe has to do a bit of an investment into the military in order to not lose the yellow token, and so I went for her, going up to 5 culture production, which is not bad. I'm a little bit behind Matabecher, but basically we are almost even, and with the 5 culture production I may be catching up now and will soon overtake him, hopefully. And then I will draw some new cards, and I draw tactic now, the defensive army tactic, punishing me now that I didn't take the cannons earlier on, but if I get the rockets, that could still be a very interesting tactic to have for me. Also, I draw the Cold War and the Independence Declaration. H3 will start now. The Ocean Liner Service is the last card, but it will still be available for me for at least in the 2 civil action area. Matabecher seeds, and there's another colony revealed. I wasn't happy to see it. H3's just started, so the strategic territory is very strong right now. I was willing to bid a little bit more, thinking that Matabecher would definitely be willing to maybe also send at least 2 units or something. So I was willing to get a little bit higher, but I have to be careful because again I think winning it for 2 units would be quite costly for me. Maybe I could have gone a little bit higher, but there's always the risk that it backfires quite heavily. Sadly, Matabeshe has 2 colonization cards. He has just gotten the strategic territory 1 before, so had some additional draws, and now is able to win that very cheaply, which I wasn't really that happy to see. So now out of the sudden he has already 3 colonies in play, and the Suez Canal is producing him 3 additional resource production every turn. Matabeshe will then go for the team sports, with that getting stronger, so I can't use Catherine at my next turn. He fixes his happy faces and then just takes the reserves to have some additional resources available. And then at my turn I am the weaker player, but at the end I'm still willing to push the Cold War into the deck. No, not the Cold War, what event was it? The Independence Declaration, because losing the 3 blue tokens wouldn't be that bad for me, but for Matabeshe with having the Suez Canal, if I should manage to get stronger, and with the Grime Wave I have already a little bit of motivation to maybe get stronger, then it could be an annoying event for Matabeshe, and I have some strength events in hand. With that I was willing to push even though I'm the weakest. Also just to get some additional culture. Sadly I do get somewhat punished for it. The Civil Unrest is revealed, costing me 4 culture. However, I also wouldn't have fixed my happy face issues this turn, so if it would have been revealed at Matabeshe's turn, it wouldn't have really changed, so at the end it's maybe still fine that I seeded here. And in this turn I will just go for the ocean liner service, which I think is quite nice for me, and now I will get a population every turn. I have 8 resource production, not the greatest, but somewhat solid science production. I have 2 breakthroughs in hand. I have the opera being allowing me maybe to start some culture production, so I think I have some nice stuff going. However, with the Civil Unrest revealed, Matabeshe is still a slight culture lead, and as you can see there's a copy of Multimedia coming down the road, and I thought it could be quite a strong card for Matabeshe, maybe even taking it together with Einstein, giving him a lot of science production, and that could be quite strong for him. But I think at this point it's relatively close. Both players still have chances. I don't really have a leader that I'm very nicely prepared for, which could be a bit of an issue, but I have those operas to increase my culture production. Maybe I will be able to get a bit stronger, and then maybe I will be able to win some strength events. So I was hoping that, that I might have some chances in H3 now. I draw 3 impacts immediately, all of them maybe not too great. Impact of colonies, impact of progress, and the impact of agriculture. At least it might be nice to know that those are not in the deck. Matabeshe seeds, and another colony is revealed, a wealthy territory, 2 this time. I was this time willing to bid 2 riflemen in the card because I didn't want to give this too cheaply to Matabeshe, and he might have drawn a lot of cards anyway. So I let him pay 8, and again he just gets it for a warrior, which is not really that great. At least he only gets 8 resources out of it because of blue token shortage, but it's still a lot of resources for him and is quite helpful. He is now at 7 resource production, and I felt that all of those colonies in the Suez Canal has maybe turned the game around a little bit for him, and I was a bit worried on how this game, in which direction this game was going. Matabeshe will rebuild the warrior, going up to 22 strength, and then will go for Einstein and the multimedia that just gets him out of corruption. He has now 13 science production, can easily go for an H3 government form, also 5 culture production, and Einstein to produce him some additional culture, and I definitely was quite a bit worried on in which direction this game is heading. The good news is that at the next turn maybe I have the chance to take the rockets, and with the defensive army tactic maybe there's still a chance that I can put a bit of pressure on Matabeshe. Maybe I even get lucky and maybe draw an H3 tactic, and that could maybe be a way how I can maybe put the game still in a favorable position for me. I push. I think this time it was the Cold War. I'm stronger. I kind of want to push, and with the rockets being available for me together with the defensive army tactic, I was hoping that maybe I have a chance to then win the Cold War, and also Matabeshe will have lots of science anyway, while the science for me will be quite helpful. So if he wins it at the end, maybe it's not too bad. If I win it at the end, maybe it could actually be quite helpful for me. So I pushed this event into the deck. And the event revealed is the Independence Declaration, and at least it means that Matabeshe will have a bit of a weaker resource production during his next turns, so I was happy to see this event revealed relatively quickly. I will then this turn use the ocean liner service, and it's a bit of a question what to do this turn. I could take the space flight, but it's not that big of a wonder for me, It would be quite costly to take it if I want to take the rockets as well. I have a full hand at the moment, so I would have to miss out on them, and I think going for a bit of military could still be very interesting for me, also with having the Magic Castle to sacrifice the unit to get even more strength if I maybe plan to go for one big war or something like this. And so I wasn't willing to pick up the space flight here, and instead just started increasing my culture production. I don't have a war in hand yet, so I don't really think I need to go all in military. I have enough resources that I can maybe allow myself to invest into those operas, while still, if I should now get a war or maybe even a nice tactic, that I then hopefully should still be able to build up a threatening amount of military while already having some culture production running. I have now 11 culture production, I will be at 40, almost having catched up to Martin Pêcheur, and with my last 2 civil actions I will take the reserves, increase my population. I didn't have the free hand space now to also take the military build-up. Maybe I could have taken the military build-up instead of the reserves, but then I would leave the reserves available for 1 civil action for Martin Pêcheur. Maybe I should have taken away the civil service, as it could potentially be a nice card for me, and Martin Pêcheur, even though he already has the Code of Laws, having Einstein, I think it will be quite nice for him to get it, but then I again also would have missed out on some other stuff, and I think if I indeed want to go for some military techs, rockets, air forces and some stuff, then I might not have the science in order to go for the civil service. So at the end I just went for the rockets, the reserves, went for 2 operas, and then increased my population normally, and I was now hoping that maybe I can get a war, as that maybe could allow me to be a bit threatening, and then maybe get like this favorable position. I don't get a war, but I get a very interesting tactic, the modern army. I have the cavalryman in hand, so maybe also with the help of Churchill, there is something possible with building up some military. Also, I draw the impact of culture, which could potentially be interesting. Martin Pêcheur seeds, the crime wave is revealed, so my 2 strength events that I've seeded are revealed relatively quickly, which is nice. He will now lose a blue token, and also 3 culture has lost the strategic territory 1 to the independence declaration. If there should be a war at the end, it might result in a 4 culture swing, so definitely might cost him a little bit. He will go for relatively cheap communism this turn, going back to 7 resource production after having lost 1 colony. Will then also take the civil service and the reserves, and has now some resources in hand, has lots of civil actions, and is still nicely prepared for a lot of impacts. Now it's my turn. I don't push actually this turn, and instead use Catherine, the additional yellow token, and making Martin Pêcheur lose 1 I think could be quite useful, meaning that the next population that I'm getting will still be happy. I won't get the famine issues immediately, so I just wanted to use this because for now I don't know how all of those events that I have in hand will work out for me. Maybe I could already commit to the impact of culture, but it could potentially backfire. I will plan to go for Churchill now, so I will already miss out on 2 culture production from Catherine for the impact of culture. The impact of agriculture and progress are probably relatively bad anyway, and the politics of strength might be very nice. But who knows, if I don't get a war, maybe I don't want to be forced to go for a lot of strength, so I thought maybe now it's a good time to use Catherine. And then I will use the ocean liner service, and as said, I will go for Churchill this turn. I will first of all make space in my hand with playing the reserves. I will reveal the defensive army tactic with the military action of Catherine. Will then go for Churchill and use his ability to go for rockets. I think saving the science and the resource might be quite helpful if I indeed should draw a war. I will leave myself with 3 free military actions to make it as likely as possible that I maybe have a chance to draw a war. Will be a bit threatening, so Martin Pêcheur hopefully has to be careful, can't easily invest into more stuff, has to keep an eye out on the situation, and so even if I don't draw a war, maybe it won't be too bad to have done this investment. And then with my remaining civil actions, I will take the urban growth, another urban growth, play the reserves, and then develop the organized religion. I thought about just building another opera, but if I now should draw a war, maybe I would regret putting this population there instead of maybe saving the resources, maybe saving myself also the option to put it into organized religion, especially now with taking the 2 urban growths. So if I now build an opera, then the question is if I even will be able to use both of the urban growths very nicely. So I didn't commit to another opera, even though it would be nice to maybe get a culture production going. It's still relatively close between me and Martin Pêcheur and the culture. Committing to the organized religion is maybe also not ideal, but I thought, with me now not having a leader, that gives me additional happy face, that it might still be needed, and even with developing it, thanks to the Churchill's ability, I still have enough science to go for cavalrymen and air forces in case I should draw a war now. And so I was kind of hoping that maybe I could draw a war, but at least it's also still relatively close with the culture. But Matapischer might have better impacts. He had those 5 draws from the strategic territory early in H3, so I felt that maybe it could be nice to draw a war, as that might be my best option at the moment. So I was interested to see what I will draw, and sadly, as you can see, no war, instead 2 colonization cards and the mechanized army tactic. Martapischer seats and the iconoclasm is revealed. At least I dodged that very nicely. That was a nice timing for me, with it being the last event in the deck. If that would have been revealed earlier, I maybe now couldn't have gone for the turn that I just did without missing out on a draw. Maybe I just wouldn't have revealed a defensive army tactic, hoping to draw war and then just going for the modern army directly, but still also not losing a civil action. That was a nice event order for me. Martapischer will then go for the modern infantry. He is now alarmed that there might be something coming. If he doesn't have a tactic, can maybe now copy the defensive army tactic, but it's also definitely not unlikely that he has a nice tactic available for himself from H3. He will also take the air forces, develops the modern infantry, plays the wave of nationalism, develops the civil service, goes for 2 upgrades, increases population to get out of corruption, and then also builds 1 team sports. And with the 2 reserves, he can maybe build up a somewhat solid strength over the next turn. Now it's my turn, and I think I have to start using the politics action, or I continue using the politics action and continue seeding this turn after having used Catherine's ability the turn before. So I could just seed the impact of culture into the deck, but at the end I went with the politics of strength. If I should go for a peaceful option, I maybe have to hope that I win the politics of strength, and maybe it could also allow myself an interesting other option. So I seeded the politics of strength, seeing what impact has Martapischer seeded, and it's the impact of happiness, which is not ideal. There are definitely worse ones, but +6 culture for Martapischer is definitely not ideal to see. And in this turn was a bit tricky, because while at the turns before the culture was always looking close, of course I was afraid that maybe Martapischer has access to a lot of strong impacts, but I still thought I'm in the game and it's not looking too bad, or at least have also some chances in a peaceful finish with the culture being relatively close. But I thought about different turns for me, and I just felt that my position is maybe actually quite a bit worse than I thought before. There's the internet on the row. If I don't take it, Martapischer has the chance to take it at his next turn, and then it is already giving him, I think, 26 or 27 culture right now. Maybe he can even make it a little bit bigger, and I think if I just leave him that, it will be difficult to win peacefully, and maybe I have to go for a bit of a military pressure. Maybe he won't take it, but he has a lot of civil action, so he should be able to some defend himself nicely while still being able to maybe take the internet and being able to get some very strong points out of that. So I thought that maybe the best option for me could actually be to just deny the internet. Just taking it myself, it would require all of my civil actions. Then the question is, do I maybe build a rifleman or a rocket in addition to having the internet? Because if I build it, first of all, it gets me out of corruption, but it also makes me a bit stronger. At his next turn, Martapischer might go for the military theory and develop it. If he does that, he gets stronger than me, and I am out of the sudden not prepared for the politics of strength any longer if I don't build a unit. However, with having the internet, it's of course also nice to not commit any resource to the military, have as many resources available for maybe building operas, and also there's still a copy of multimedia left. I have 2 urban growths, I have a lot of resource saved up, so I thought if I go for the internet, maybe build opera, multimedias, and then also have the impact of culture, that could actually put me in a solid position. But I did some calculations about my resources, and actually, even though it seems like I have a lot of resources, especially with the 2 urban growths, it's actually not that much, because I will need to build a farm soon to avoid famine. I probably will want to build an opera, and if I go for the internet now, at the next turn build a farm, build an opera, build a multimedia, then in 2 turns, when it will be already my last turn, I can finish the internet, but sadly I'm missing just a bit of resources to build another multimedia, and with having missed out on an H3 government form, I don't have the option to go for another opera, and then the internet is just giving me something like 18 or 19 points, if I remember it correctly, which is fine, but not really that great. So with that, the internet option might still be the best, because I can't really leave it to Martha Pêcheur. But it's also not really that great, because Martha Pêcheur can maybe just go for the Manhattan Project, or maybe even the Empire State Building potentially, but the Manhattan Project is relatively, no, not completely cheap of course, but yes, the architecture, it only costs 14 resources, and he at least gets 16 culture out of it. I was going for operas and a multimedia the next gen. If I go for the internet option, will get more culture reduction than Martha Pêcheur, but Martha Pêcheur can make up for it with developing technologies with Einstein, and I did a bit of calculation. We maybe will get relatively similar amount of culture out of our turn. Maybe I will get a little bit more because of my increased production, but Martha Pêcheur can also of course do some nice stuff. And then we will get relatively similar strong wonders if I now go for the internet, and at the end we will then be in a situation where I will be a bit behind going into the final impacts. I can hopefully see the impact of culture, and with the impact of culture already calculated in, maybe we will be at a relatively similar amount of culture. Maybe we'll have a very, very slight lead if things go nicely for me. And then I just felt like I don't have good chances, because Martha Pêcheur has a lot of impacts where he's nicely prepared for. There are some really bad ones like Impact of Tech and Impact of Science. Luckily, Impact of Progress is out. But there are also just a lot of impacts where he's slightly better. There are some very strong ones, and as you remember, he had 5 additional draws from the Strategic Territory 2 just at the beginning of H3, had a lot of additional draws until then, and I just thought it's just very unlikely that he doesn't have a lot of nice impacts, and I can't really hope that there are mostly neutral impacts in there or something like this. I maybe would have to hope that there are only slightly good impacts for him, and that maybe I with my draw will draw another nice impact, or if not, that maybe the Politics of Strength will be revealed at a nice time. Maybe Martha Pêcheur for some reason won't get stronger, and then I will get a culture swing in H4 with not committing to an additional population into the military. Maybe something like this could lead to a win for me, but I was really thinking that it's not really unlikely. And so I was thinking, are there any alternatives? I thought about going for a bit of military pressure, maybe developing the cavalryman with Churchill's ability, building one, revealing the tactic, leaving myself at least with 2 draws open to draw a war. But if I then if I go for Air Force at the next turn, and sacrificing with the Michikasten, I'm a bit threatening, but it would only be a very small war. It probably won't prevent Martha Pêcheur from getting the internet, so that didn't really seem that great of an option for me. So no, I was a little bit unhappy that I didn't draw a war, because then I thought I could just commit now fully, use all of my military actions this turn, and at the next turn with also taking the patriotism, I would be able to threaten 88 strength. And at the moment when I had those thoughts, I thought maybe that is actually the best idea, because there is one hope that I can be having, and it is also not really a likely outcome. But I just at the end felt it's maybe more likely than what I need to have in order, compared to what things need to happen for me to win, if I just take the internet away, or if I maybe go for another peaceful option and let Martha Pêcheur have the internet. And so at the end I went for a bit of an interesting option. I use Churchill, go for the cavalryman, build a rocket, destroy 1 lab, build a rifleman, reveal the tactic, use all of my military actions, take the patriotism, take the endowment, and take the fundamentalism away, because Martha Pêcheur has already the communism, but with the Acropolis could easily still switch to fundamentalism if he finds that the 6 additional strengths are useful for him. Now you of course might be thinking, what is the point of this? I don't have any war in hand, but there is one hope that I can be having, and that is the Politics of Strength. There are 2 H2 cards, sadly there are 2. It would be a lot better if the Cold War wouldn't be there now. But there are 2 events. Martin Bashir, with me doing this, has to think that I have a war in hand, which is threatening for him, meaning if he has an impact, even though he might of course be afraid of some events, but I think he has to push because he needs as many points from impacts as possible if there's a war, because I would be able to go up to 88 strength with sacrificing, if I remember my calculations correctly. And Martin Bashir depends a little bit on whether he has something like positional army, or if he maybe wants to go for slightly less strength, but then goes for the Manhattan Project to defend, but he can go into the 50s or 60s, I think. And that would be quite a big war, maybe something like a 60 culture swing potentially. And no, so here, if very likely has some nice impacts for himself in hand, and I think he kind of needs to seed them into the deck. He can't hold them back, because with me doing this move, he has to think that I have a war, and if he seeds, which I thought hopefully should be very likely, luckily he is prepared for a lot of impacts, then there's a 50-50 chance that the politics of strength is revealed, and if it is revealed, I have at least already seen a bunch of cards that are no wars, and with 5 additional draws, it's of course definitely not guaranteed, but it is also not completely unlikely that I would draw a war for myself, and if this happens, I at the next turn can actually go for a war, going up to 88 strength. Of course, sadly, it's not really likely that it will happen, but I thought Marta Bashir is likely to seed. Let's maybe say he seeds. I thought it's maybe something around 80% with all of the nice impacts that are potentially available for him, with him having had that many draws. So I thought it's very likely that he will seed, and it's a 50-50 chance that the politics of strength is revealed, and then I didn't calculate how the exact chances are that I will draw a war, but no, maybe those are of course not great, but also not too bad. So I thought maybe there's something like a 15, maybe a little bit higher percent chance that all of this will work, which is not great. But I just at the end felt that is a better chance than when I will just go for the internet and then have to hope that Marta Bashir doesn't have drawn any nice or very strong impact for himself with having had that many draws, or maybe hoping that I will get something like Impact of Wonders, or maybe Impact of Strength, and then hoping that Marta Bashir won't get stronger or something like this. I just felt that my chances are even worse when I go for the internet, and so at the end I actually went for this play. If I go for the war, and if I get a war, it's maybe also not completely guaranteed that I will win. Marta Bashir can maybe defend with the Manhattan Project, could still have very strong impacts like Impact of Tech, Impact of Science, but I will maybe be able to see the impact of culture, and I was hoping that I should have relatively good chances to win if I should get a war. So now, with that, I went for this interesting play, and now all will depend on Marta Bashir's politics phase. And now, that was now a very exciting moment for me. He seeds, and as you can see, sadly, my gamble didn't pay off, and there is no politics of strength revealed, which is a bit sad. I would have at least wanted to see the cards from the politics of strength, but sadly the Cold War is revealed in the additional signs. Now, isn't it helpful? And with that happening, now the game is probably completely over, because that was now a commitment, and I was hoping for that specific out. And with that out now not working, I now have probably very bad chances to still win this game. Marta Bashir goes for the Napoleonic army tactic, has the revolutionary idea. And at the next turn, how much could he have done with the Napoleonic army tactic? He could have gone for another tactic for 8 resources, and then he would still have 11 left, can go for 1 air force, so he could have maybe gone for something like plus 14 and plus 24, so 62, maybe also a bit more if he has the positional army tactic, or maybe he wants to do something different with going for the Manhattan Project. So now it could have been potentially a relatively big war for myself. Now H4 will start, and now at this point I will just start seeding the impact of culture. At least the politics of strength is now revealed, giving a bit of a culture swing. And then we'll just build an organized religion. I thought about if I somehow can prepare for finishing the Empire State Building at the next turn, but Montabishur can just take it away if I do this, and it also wasn't really that easily possible to prepare nicely for it, and so instead I just went for an organized religion and multimedia, fixing my food production, and the next turn I can build another multimedia and also play the endowment. All of those things probably won't be enough to win me the game, but maybe I can still try something. Matapeshir seeds, so he has another impact. The impact of variety is revealed, giving him +4 against me. At least I'm also somewhat solid in this impact. He will then go for the air forces, for the movies, and then we'll just finish the Manhattan Project for 16 points and also scored 6 more points for Einstein. And at my turn, I can't really use my politics phase. I will go for the satellites, play the endowment, and then go for one multimedia. And that's basically all I can do before going into the final impacts. I'm still not completely... I'm not that much behind, and I have the impact of culture, but yeah, Matapeshir has seeded a lot of impact, so I think this point is not really a lot of hope left for me. Then there is the impact of a population, which gives Matapeshir +4 against me. There is the impact of architecture, which gives him +1 against me. And there is the impact of technology, so that is a really big impact for Matapeshir, giving him +16 against me. And then there is the impact of culture from me. Yeah, so at the end I lose this game. I think it was an interesting game because Matapeshir just skipped the iron, didn't care about having the option to increase his resource production guaranteed, went for some colonies, and then the Suez Canal, even though it was late and he had only no colony when he finished it, apart from the one that he then got with the Suez Canal. He then got a lot of colonies quickly afterwards, very cheaply, and I think that really helped him getting a nice position. Also the early multimedia with Einstein, I think, was a very strong play from him, putting him into a very threatening position. He had a strategic territory, so he knew that maybe he had already some strong impacts, knew that there are maybe more impacts that he could draw with going for this play. And while I could keep up in culture, I at the end had realized that with the potentially strong impacts that Matapeshir very likely has drawn, my chances to win are maybe not really that high. As you can see, there was the impact of tech, some other at least solid impacts at the end, and I think if I would have just gone for the internet play, I would have just lost. So I think in hindsight, I'm not completely sure if it was the right decision with the information available, because maybe I could have hoped that Matapeshir doesn't have a lot of nice impacts. As the warplay definitely also was a bit of a stretch in order for it to work. Maybe I should have hoped that I draw something like Impact of Wonders or another potentially nice impact for me, but there are not that many. And so I think at the end, in hindsight, it was actually the right decision to go for this play, even though it didn't work out, because there was the impact of tech, and I think if I would just go for the internet, I just lose. If I do anything else, I probably also just lose, and with this play at least I gave myself the chance that the politics of strength is revealed, and that I get a war, and that I then maybe can defeat Matapeshir with the big culture swing from the war. But sadly the Cold War was revealed, and with this I basically lost the game then, because it was then a too big commitment. But I think it was an interesting situation. I think it was at the end an interesting solution to go for this play, and still a very interesting game, I think, to take a look at. And now that this game is finished, we can also take maybe a quick look at the standings again from the Royal League and see how the situation is looking for me there. And as you can see in the standings, Ben actually has at the moment the best start. He has already finished 3 games, won all of them, so he has a very nice position at the moment. Also Saru has won all of his games, is at 4 points at the moment. LCF Wakes has only 1 game finished but won it, so those are the players that just won all of their games. Matapeshir had 1 win, 1 loss, and actually a tie in the last game against Gute Metralla, so he has maybe a somewhat average start with basically one draw, one win, and one loss, being in 3 points at the moment. Benny Shadow, the champion from the last 2 seasons, has one loss, but with only 2 games finished, definitely can still win a lot of games and still win the league. And yeah, the same is true for Gute Mitralla. And for me in Payada, the season didn't really started nicely. I lost my first 2 games. Payada even lost his first 3 games. So there are, I think, now still 5 games left for me. So hopefully I will be able to start getting some wins in, and hopefully at the end, maybe then stay in the league, because with having started with 2 losses, I think it's now very unlikely that I will still be able to win the league. It's not impossible if I win all of the 5 games, and maybe the results are, and there's no other player that gets a lot of wins in, but at this point it's probably rather unlikely, and I should maybe rather hope to at the end not get relegated, with now hopefully getting some wins in. Now, so I hope it was an interesting game for you to watch. I hope it's interesting to maybe with those games to get a little bit of seeing something of a tournament that maybe hasn't been featured that much. So no, I think it's quite the interesting tournament structure, and then we will maybe also take a look at some more games from it. So I hope you're looking forward to that. Then I say thanks for watching. Also thanks for all of you who supported me on Patreon. I'm very thankful for that. And then have a nice time and see you in the next video.